So during the month of November, with Thanksgiving, we're always thinking a little more about being grateful, being in gratitude. And the thing I've realized is that even though we have so very much for which to be grateful and for which to give thanks, we can become a little bit blasé about it, a little bit jaded, and can feel sometimes even like it's an obligation rather than an overflowing, natural, joyful expression, this feeling and this awareness of gratitude and appreciation and thanksgiving. So this year, as I was contemplating my November messages around gratitude, this book came to my attention. I shared it with you last Sunday, too. It's called Thank and Grow Rich. Thank and Grow Rich. It's written by a woman named Pam Grout, and you heard it right. It's not Think and Grow Rich, it's Thank and Grow Rich. And the subtitle is A 30-Day Experiment in Shameless Gratitude and Unabashed Joy. She goes all in with this idea, this experience, this expression. And just to set her tone, right in the beginning of the book, she says, the gratitude I'm talking about in this book is anything but Gratitude 101, not flimsy, lame. Well, now there's another thing. I love that. We always love the bling, don't we? But that's another sermon. She said, no, it's not this flimsy, lame idea of gratitude that we trot out once a year, around Thanksgiving. She said, let's call it ferocious gratitude, in-your-face gratitude. And she writes the entire book in that tone, in a real upbeat, and almost with an attitude, but in a good way. And it's a lot of fun to read, and it reminds you in just a little different way of how exquisite and energizing and natural this experience of gratitude is. So, she's written the title of her book is a takeoff on that brilliant and enduring classic by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, which was an excellent book. And she says, no offense to Napoleon Hill and his brilliant book, Think and Grow Rich, but she said, how about this? Let's do less thinking and more thanking. In other words, let's not overthink it so much. Let's just do it. And that is code for as you thank, you suddenly realize how rich you really are. So our theme for this whole month is think less, thank more. Think less, thank more. Now, Pam Grout in the book says, when we practice this proactive, ferocious gratitude, we come to realize that it opens a portal straight into the heart of the very field of infinite possibilities. Wow. When we really focus on that, when we're really in this ferocious gratitude, this amazing, I'm immersed in it, I let it fill me, it opens a portal, she says, straight into the heart of the very field of infinite possibilities. So last Sunday we set the framework for this theme, Thank and Grow Rich, and I shared with you, and I'm going to repeat it again this week, what she said about that, because she said right in the beginning of the book, I want to get this out on the table right now. This book won't do a thing for your 401k or even help you secure the McMansion that you pasted on your vision board. It's not about getting rich in the traditional sense. Thank and Grow Rich is about building a different kind of portfolio, a portfolio that appreciates and expands the deep and unceasing abundance that you already have. It's about growing equity in the love and the creativity and the beauty that's already inside of you. Of course, she says, there's absolutely nothing wrong with financial capital, but let me be very clear. She says, this book is about rediscovering your most important riches. It's about compounding the divine inheritance that you were born with. Now, here's the part I enjoyed the most about the book, was this. She said, everybody loved the idea of the book, but then they wanted to know how to. They wanted some steps for how to get there, how to do this. And she said, truth be told, I can't bring myself to offer exercises or steps because they just seem like too much work. She said, so instead of exercises, I'm going to offer party games, 27 of them. And in the book, she has 27 very brief kind of games that you can play in exploring and expanding this experience of recognizing your richness and being truly, ferociously grateful. Now, I recommend that you get the book because it is a really inspiring look at this, and you can get it on Amazon, and you can hear our last Sunday, of course, message on our podcast. So today, gratitude is a magnet. Gratitude is a magnet. There was a Congregationalist clergyman and social activist way back in the 1800s named Henry Ward Beecher. And he said it so well. He said, let the grateful heart sweep through the day, and as the magnet finds the iron, so it will find in every hour some heavenly blessing. Can't you just picture it? This magnet just going through the day. That's gratitude, and just drawing to it, blessing after blessing. Think about a magnet. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't attract everything. It only attracts materials that are resonant to its attracting properties. And this happens without deliberation, without struggle, powerfully. No resistance. It just does what it does. You know what? Gratitude does that too. That's why we're saying don't overthink it. Just be it. Less thinking, more thanking. Now, the way Dr. Ernest Holmes, the architect of our philosophy put it, he said it in many, many ways, but here's a succinct way that he said it. Gratitude is the power which attracts and magnifies the hidden potentialities of life. It attracts and it magnifies all the hidden potentialities of life. Like the author said, an opening, a portal to the field of infinite possibilities. In the book, she goes on to say this. More than a book about counting blessings, this is a book about climate change. Climate change. Changing the climate of your energy field. Upgrading the resonance with which you perceive the world. And she said, this resonance rearranges atoms and reconfigures molecules. It literally changes things. Now, this is another way of saying what we know is that our consciousness creates. Our thoughts become things. She said, living on the frequency of gratitude, getting that climate change so you be in that frequency, causes cataclysmic reverberations. And like I said, she goes into it all full boat. Cataclysmic reverberations. Now, another way that it was expressed by a little more conservatively, or should I say just reservedly, a man named Dr. Robert Holden said, the miracle of gratitude is that it shifts your perception to such an extent that it totally changes the world you see. The miracle of gratitude is that it shifts your perception. So it totally changes the world you see. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses. Perception of everything when you're coming from that consciousness of gratitude. And science confirms that everything is energy. You know that. Everything is energy vibrating at all kinds of frequencies, a variety of frequencies, from the invisible to the visible. And you know, too, science tells us there is that observer effect. Simply stated, that the frequency of the qualities of our focused attention and intention influences the qualities and forms into which that energy materializes. That we impact that, the intention, the attention, the vibration of how we're seeing things starts to change what's actually out there. Change your frequency, change your life. Now, in this book, she goes on to say that changing your frequency to a gratitude frequency, generates a different kind of capital, one that feeds your soul, one that serves your real desires. Have you ever noticed that this is so, we know this from Sunday School 101 maybe even, that you can get more and more things and more stuff, and after a while, it's not satisfying. You want more and more. We want more and more stuff, more and more. It's kind of like a bottomless pit. She says, this gratitude frequency creates the kind of capital that serves your real desires, that fulfills you. Your real desires, our real desires, to be of service, to be a channel for love, and to create, as she says in her own way, insanely beautiful things. But that's what we are here to do. We have that urge as human beings behind it all to love, to serve, and to create. And it's this capital, this of gratitude, that serves that creates an opening for that. And talking about the power of our consciousness then, the frequency of our consciousness, she says, our consciousness has butt-kicking power. Take that to the bank, will ya? Take that with you this week. Your consciousness has butt-kicking power. It is not just, oh, I think I'll have a nice thought today and maybe it'll happen and maybe it won't. Realize that there is great power in shifting the frequency of the energy that you're putting out, and in one word, an energy of gratitude can shift that and make so many changes and manifest in your life. Now, I have to say, for me, it is a practice, so it isn't just like it happens overnight, but it is powerful. It is powerful. And you hear that every Sunday here in some way, don't you? About your consciousness being so very effective. Ernest Holmes, again, in one of my daily reading books that I love so much called Richer Living, he says it is the nature, he's saying this in his way, it's the nature of consciousness to externalize itself. Thinking becomes manifest. It's the very nature of consciousness to externalize itself, to bring about conditions which exactly correspond to that consciousness, that resonance, that outpicturing. Now, there are a couple of writers in the Science of Mind magazine, Dr. Andrew Newberg along with Mark Waldman, who write a short article every month, and the column is called Science and Spirituality. Great little read, great little snippet. It always gets you inspired to go deeper, to look further into what they're saying. And this month, of course, they're talking about gratitude. And they said simply, gratitude is a brain changer. It's a brain changer. And they said the research is robust. People who practice gratitude are healthier, they're happier, more effective, more resilient than those who don't consciously practice gratitude. Now, that's a big generalization. And they say they cite some research that's been done, and you can also look it up, and there's a lot of research that supports that. It's healthy. And we know what we think of over and over starts to change how our habitual thoughts find their little rivers, their little ruts in our head, in our brain. And if we're constantly thinking, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, I don't have enough, then there's almost a habitual way that our thoughts keep going in that rut. And so when they say it's a brain changer, is if we shift our thoughts to thankful, gratitude, appreciation, we start to shift how those new directions of how our thoughts will go, soon by habit. So since this is such a great idea, what happened? How come we aren't just all there, right on, okay, I'm in? Well, in the book she says, actually, I'm going to tell you what Dennis Merritt Jones said first. Dennis Merritt Jones has been here to speak a few times, and he's written some wonderful books. He's one of our Centers for Spiritual Living retired ministers. And he wrote an article about gratitude just recently, and he said, we're so easily seduced by people's collective consciousness, which is so obsessed with staring at what is wrong and what is missing. All you have to do is turn on the news, watch the commercials, just for starters, let alone listening to a lot of conversation, casual conversation around you, and it seems to be mostly about what's wrong and what we don't have and what's missing. And we kind of get a groupthink going. We almost have an implicit agreement that yep, there's just so much wrong and there's just so much missing, and forgetting that there still is so much good. And in the book, here's how Pam Grout puts it. She says, we actually bought this big joke that we could be separate from our source, that we could disconnect from the infinite energy field. Big joke. But the truth is, you hear that most every Sunday in some way too, that the universe is our source, God is our source, by whatever name you want to call it. It is that out of which you are created. So how could you not be an integral part of that which serves you, that provides for you, that is abundantly there for you, your source? We have that all the time. And so that's what she says. We bought this big joke that we could actually be separate. We cannot, by the very nature of how it all is created. We cannot be separated from it. So, let's look at about three things you can do. It's not really a how-to, but maybe some suggestions of what, again, this author discovered about how to develop this awareness of really focused and intentional gratitude. First thing is asking the question, what are you staring at? And this comes from a story she shares where she and her daughter took a trip to Costa Rica and they took surfing lessons. And she said, our instructor named Jesus was very clear. He said, when you get on the board, keep your eyes focused on the sandy beach. Do not, under any circumstances, take your eyes off that beach. The board is always going to head toward whatever you are looking at. Now, I'm not a surfer, so I don't know. I can't corroborate that, but it's in the book. Must be true. I thought that was very interesting. I've heard it in connection with other things, that where you're looking, the rest will follow. So this was their instruction. Now, these are she and her daughter never surfed before. And she said, but since the last thing Jesus wanted to do was peel two first-time surfers off the scary-looking rocks on either side of the beach, he was adamant, keep your eyes on the beach. And she said, well, we were asking, but when do we jump? When do we hang 10? He said, keep your eyes on the beach. So they did. Has a happy ending. They did. But she said, and here's how I took this into my own life. Right then she was starting a writing career, and she was feeling like that wasn't, it seemed to be kind of dead-ended. So she loved to travel. And I'm going to start a travel, a writing travel combination kind of thing. So she said, when I started that career, I could stare at the rocks or I could stare at the beach. Now, staring at the rocks was, I'm an unknown from Kansas. I don't know a single person who makes a living as a travel writer. Back then, she didn't. I have no idea how to get started. That is staring at the rocks. What's missing? What's wrong? She said, or I could focus on the beach. The sandy beach, I'm so grateful. Can you imagine getting to write about countries I have yet to explore? You see how she shifted her thinking to gratitude for what could be, for infinite possibilities, looking at the beach. And she realized there's the power of that metaphor of staring where she wanted to go, in the direction that she wanted to go. And then she started the book, and she said, oh, dear. Staring at the rocks looked like this. It was hardly anyone gets a book deal these days, or why spend all that time and energy on something that may not happen? Or, she said, I could shift and stare at the beach. I'm so grateful because how amazing it is that my words can maybe make a difference in people's lives. And she has a much longer list of all of these, how she stared at the beach instead of the rocks. And she found that was just so helpful. So that's one thing to kind of play with, say, what am I looking at today? What am I staring at? The rocks? And you and I know what it feels like to be staring at those scary rocks, as opposed to staring at the lovely sandy beach. Second thing, she has possibility posses. Now, I think support groups are really wonderful and helpful, and there's a whole range of possibilities and help that we can get and give in support groups. This is a little bit different. She said these are groups of people, not terribly formal or structured, and there might be friends or friends of friends as they expand, groups that get together to talk possibility, quantum physics, in other words, the science behind possibility, and the miraculous world we choose to look for and choose to see. That's our intention, that's our sole purpose. They get together and talk possibilities. She said, we have a blast sharing stories about how the largesse of the universe just rushes in. When is the last time that you said, I love the largesse of the universe? I appreciate the largesse of that is such a huge, wonderful concept, isn't it? You say, wow, I am just showered with blessings everywhere I look. Now, she said, we take the time to stare at how frequently the universe works in our favor. Little coincidences, big amazing events, whatever. There's just one intention of her possibility posses. Can you imagine how uplifting that would be? Spend 30 minutes even over lunch with some people who said, we're going to talk about one thing, possibilities. The good things that have happened, the little things, the big things. We did this last Sunday, for those of you who were here. It was such fun. It was fun for me to see, and I think you enjoyed it, where we took some time to reflect on some tiny little thing for which we were thankful, that was a blessing. And everybody wrote them down, and we collected them, and then everybody pulled one out of the basket again, and we shared some of them. And it was an opportunity to do just that, to be a big possibility posse, to recognize how many, many wonderful things are blessing us all the time. And the third thing is decide what kind of day you're going to have. Now, this is not new to you, I'm sure, but let's revisit it. Decide what kind of day you're going to have. You ever gotten up on the wrong side of the bed? And the whole day is like downhill from there. And maybe about 3 in the afternoon, you say, oh, I remember now. I started out with that thought process going on in my head. Or maybe you can't relate to that, but you can relate to someone you know who has gotten up on the wrong side of the bed. And how they, cranky. So let's say we can set the intention for what kind of a day we want to have. She calls it pre-paving your day. Pre-paving your day. And she said how she does it, and you can use this as a morning statement for yourself, maybe even before you get out of bed. Something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. Thank you, universe. See, that's keeping it nice and open-ended, and it's kind of exciting. Something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. Thank you, universe. And she said, this truly will alter the course of your day, and I think we all know that. We just don't always remember to do that. And she said, then I usually leave the details up to the universe, just what that awesome thing is going to be. Because she said, and she made up a word, I love this, she said, because I've discovered that the awesomenaciousness of the universe, is far greater, far more beautiful than anything that I could possibly think up. Now, is this selfish? Is this being self-absorbed? This came to my mind especially as I was working with this, and then we've seen what tragedies are going on in California this week. The mass shooting, the fires, and I'm thinking, how can I talk about being grateful and blessings? And do you know that feeling? Do you get that feeling like, oh, wait a minute, I should get busy and do something. I don't know what I can do, but what can I do? I should do something, and I shouldn't be feeling grateful and blessed, for goodness sake, because look at what these people are going through. And I think that's a very compassionate question for us to ask. But let me say this, too, that it is not self-absorbed. It is not selfish. Because not only does our expanded awareness of all we have to be thankful for, and our intention to be in gratitude, not only does that bless us, but remember the frequency thing I was talking about? It raises the frequency around us. And that has a ripple effect. You know that. There's one mind, one presence, one power. We're all in it, and we can't do one single thing without it touching those around us and rippling outward. And so, you being and me being in a place of appreciation and gratitude and thankfulness blesses outwardly people we will never ever know, situations we will never ever know. And as one contributor in her book said, when I do focus on my blessings, I feel full. And when I am full, I am ready and able and eager to give and to be of help. Have you noticed that about yourself? When you are feeling clutched and afraid and limited, I don't know about you, but I feel much less generous, much less creative, and how can I reach out and be of support, be of help? When I am feeling full, as he uses this term, and grateful, I feel much more ready. It just flows out of me. How I can serve, how I can give, how I can, and actually, as the book starts out saying, this is the kind of capital that we're creating when we are developing this vibration and this frequency of gratitude. It's the capital of generosity and largesse, being an avenue for the largesse of the universe. And we find that ideas and solutions and ways in which we can be of support and help to others in need come to us when we're open to that. So just know that even when we look at news that is, and every week it seems like there is news that would cause us to say, oh, I better put my gratitude on the shelf, put my blessings aside, and I better get busy and worry. And I feel for these people, these situations. And it comes from a truly well-meaning place in us. But let's remember that no amount of our limitation, of our being blessed, will help someone else. It works the other way around. Come from that place of fullness. So I'm going to close with this wonderful statement by Dr. Ernest Holmes again. And by the way, what I was talking about, too, goes right back to Bob's song, Grateful Hearts Do Grateful Things. So he underscores that very thing. You are a blessing to those in need, to those around you, when you are knowing your blessings and are grateful. So here's what Dr. Ernest Holmes said. We exist for the purpose that God, life, he calls it life, we can call it God, whatever you want to call it, that it may operate through us and express itself as us. And so, the answer to every problem already exists in the mind of God. And you are in the mind of God, and the mind of God is flowing through you in this minute. Source, your source. Remember, we're not disconnected. So he says we exist so that life may operate through us and express as us, and the answer to every problem already exists in the mind of God, and that mind is in you, and you are in that mind. So he says gratitude is part of this practical philosophy of daily life. There is no wiser way of living than to remember every morning that what life has given us and to lift up our thought in thankfulness for every blessing we possess. And he finishes it by saying, accept this with gratitude and with enthusiasm as you would accept the best news you ever heard. Accept this with gratitude and enthusiasm. This is the best news you've ever heard, he says, and then use it. Because, after all, as we know, gratitude is a magnet. Gratitude is a magnet. And it will make your heart sing. And so Carlton is going to anchor this with God Makes Me Want to Sing. Namaste. Thank you.